Hey everybody, welcome back to Prince's Friend, exploring music through Prince. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification so you always know when we release new videos. Today we have part 2 of my Welcome to America review. Last time we talked mostly about the music and the making of the music and kind of those awesome things that all kind of went into Welcome to America. Today, though, we're going to talk about the story and the messaging that Prince was trying to convey with this album. Again, as I noted in part 1, I feel like the two pieces are so important that I wanted to address each of them individually. We don't want to lose the messaging with the music or the music and the messaging. They're both super important to what this project was and is even today. And you know, when I sat down to jot down all my notes for this album, I started just by typing the titles of the songs. And instead of looking at the track list, I decided to go by memory. I went based on the story that I heard on this album. So there's Welcome to America, then Running Game's Son of a Slave Master, then Born to Die, Light Years from Here, Hot Summer, Stand Up and Be Strong, Check the Record, Same Page, Different Book, When She Comes, 10-10 Rin 10-10, Yes, and then One Day We Will All Be Free. And it wasn't actually hard for me to remember the order of the songs once you understand the structure of the album and the story that's being told, the messages being conveyed, what Prince was trying to say. And of course, no one will know for certain. Prince isn't here to tell us exactly why he made this decision or that decision, or why he sang this, or why this word's in this song, or, you know, whatever. All of the decisions that led to this amazing album. Likewise, though, he also did say that if we want to know him, then all we have to do is listen to the music. So that's what I'm doing here, and that's what I've always done here on this channel. Listen to Prince's music, analyze, absorb his messages, absorb what he's trying to convey. And I think that I've done a pretty okay job so far. But let me tell you the story that I hear in the album Welcome to America.
And truth is a new minority. Welcome to America.
So we start off with Welcome to America. Prince presents us with the world as he sees it. So remember that this song came after the 2008 financial crash. So the references to the $700 billion tip is kind of a call out to the bailout that corporate America got from the US government and the banks and, you know, pretty much, you know, the people who caused the whole thing. He calls out the 24-hour news for overloading people, the infatuation with technology, in his mind causing less connection between people.
Distracted by the features of the iPhone.
Got an application.
In other words, taken by a pretty face.
He calls out Obama's slogan, Hope and Change, says that everything takes too long. He's essentially calling out all of the things that he doesn't necessarily like with the society and the world as America stands. Now, and that's the thing, right? He's not talking about other countries. He's specifically talking about America, and other places might have some of these same issues, but America, we have our own brand of things wrong with us here. Then we get to near the end of the song where he says, you cannot argue with the book. And this is a reference to something that I have suspected for a while that happened to Prince around this time, but it was also confirmed in Kim Berry's book. You've seen my review of that. I didn't necessarily like the book itself, but it wasn't because I didn't think that that information was true, because it was something that I sensed already. But around this time, 2010, 2011, was when Prince was kind of having the fallout with the Jehovah's Witness church around this time. And you can tell that because if he had just said, you cannot argue with the book, that would have been one thing. But instead, he says, you cannot argue with the book. And you have the background singer saying, well, who's going to teach it to me? You? When are we going to learn something new? And these are the things, like, I had already said for years that 2010 was a huge departure for Prince as he started kind of leaning more on the spiritualism of his relationship with God and less on organized religion around this time. You could hear it in his lyrics and his approach to his spiritualism in his lyrics and in his songs. So having this song actually kind of out around that same time, for me, it kind of confirms it with this part, the "you cannot argue with the book." The chorus is also a very, very important thing to the story that is happening here in this album.
Transformation happens deep within. Yes or no? Yes.
Where he says the biggest change comes deep from within. And he asks, are you going to say yes? Or are you going to say no to this huge change? And it's a big, big question. Most people are happy to just say no and keep with the status quo that he's laid out here. That's why this song is actually so huge. And I'm not even going to go line for line. We may do a separate video for that. You guys let me know. As a matter of fact, I want everybody who's interested in this, obviously, to comment. And if you do, share with me your thoughts on the story and the music and all that stuff. But also let me know what song you would most want me to break down in a wordplay episode off of Welcome to America. This one is, I think, a great candidate, but there's a lot of other ones on here that do a really good job of showing and not telling. And sometimes you kind of want to know, what were you trying to say? Then we go into Running Game, Son of a Slave Master. And what is on its face, just kind of like Prince railing against the music industry, yet again, as he always does. This is actually a commentary on Black success in the modern day. There are so many of us who are musically talented, who are trying to make it. And it's so hard to turn down a deal when so much money is waved in your face. Shelby J and Prince are singing the lines, the game that is being run on these artists.
How many gats in the slacks be showing? Betcha that the man downtown be knowing. Wax turn to beef when the gangsters meet. Son of a slave master, keeping it going.
First verse is, how many gats in the slacks be showing? Betcha that the man downtown be knowing. Is essentially saying that they are targeting young artists from these neighborhoods with lots of crime. They're easy picking because they're looking for a way out. And if you can make that kind of happen for them, or make them believe that you can do that for them, then essentially you own them, right? Son of a slave master. The second verse is, how much do you want for that real dope beat? Then they take the artist through the ringer. Lies, cheating, everything happens to this person until they're basically back out on the street. Then in the third verse, they say,
25,000's like selling it free. Seems like a lot next to poverty. How much you really want for all them beats? Son of a slave master, keeping it going.
How much do you really want for all those beats? So here you go. It started off with, wow, that one beat is so good. We can give you all this money and it's amazing. And then once you bring them through the ringer, then you just say, oh, well, we'll give you this piddly amount for all your stuff and we will own it and you won't. This is why the statement in the packaging for this album was super important, where it talked about the Black ownership of art. And it's a huge, huge deal for Prince. And this is just one way, like the best way that Prince has to illustrate how, even with something as amazing as getting a record deal, the fact that so many large institutions are owned by white people who are then taking advantage of Black people, particularly capitalizing off young Black artists. This should be repulsive. And honestly, that's why I like a lot of what's happening now, where most artists are kind of their own marketing, they're their own distribution, they do everything themselves, and I think it's awesome, myself included. You know, all my stuff, I contact anybody who's interested in my music, I contact them directly, because I wouldn't want to give up ownership of any of what I have created. So with Prince having such a vast catalog, that's why he speaks on it so much. But again, as much as this is, you know, Prince, you know, just railing against the system, he's also talking about how corporate America and the old way of doing things is preying on young Black society.
Said nothing good happens after midnight. So high.
Then we get into Born to Die. This is the story of a woman who survives by spending her whole life devoted to crime, the game, essentially. While that might seem like pointing to the glorification of crime, the important part of this whole song, because, you know, he's singing, the whole song is, you know, she's really awesome and she's surviving and blah, 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 you know.
Sells everything, A to Z, anything just to keep her free from the hustle of the streets. She left.
But at the end, when Shelby and the girls are talking, and they're essentially talking about, girl, she fell from the 3rd floor. So it's like, whoa, there's 2 ways that you can interpret this sort of thing. Is that one, is that life just got too much for this woman who had absorbed herself in crime. So she took her own life. You know, you don't technically fall from the 3rd floor. Like, there's a reason why you went over the balcony. The other interpretation of that could be that this kind of life really only ends with someone else coming for your spot. There's a lot of talk in the song about someone trying to cut her cake, you know, so there is this element of, you are born to die. If you come into this world, you're gonna die, whether by your own hand or by somebody else's. And with that, Prince has kind of set up a story really nicely. Welcome to America. This is the America that we live in. Everything is corrupt. Black people are being exploited by people outside their community. And even in their own community, there's infighting, there's crime, there's fighting against each other. There is no peace in our life. And that leads us from the past of what has come before and into now the present with 1,000 light years from here.
1,000 light years from here. Spiritual 1,000 light years from here.
This song is Prince's pitch to everyone that there can be a better world if we get off our butts and we make it happen. It's a song appealing to Black people and how only we can bring America to its next evolution.
We taught them what they know, and now we got to show them what it means to be American.
Of course, Prince is talking about a spiritual revolution and a peaceful resolution of everyone coming together on a higher level, a future world without borders, without death, without having to kill each other for peace, for happiness. And he's sung about this a lot in previous songs, but I feel like he dresses it in really, really great imagery in this song. I feel like the use of the word light years illustrates just how far out of reach a future like this seems. But the tone of the song, Prince's voice on here, it really seems to be raising all of the people up so that one day we really can achieve that goal. And this is the start of what Prince is kind of explaining the present. Prince isn't dwelling in the past anymore, and instead is saying we need to push forward for a better world for everybody, and that no one's gonna give it to us, especially not the powers that be.
As I got your ear, I think it's gonna be hot summer.
That actually brings us into Hot Summer. And there's a reason why Hot Summer is kind of a bouncy song, you know? It's about celebration and coming together in joy. The idea of Hot Summer is that they are gathering to move forward into something that isn't going to be a good experience. It's going to be hard. It's going to beat you down like the sun during summer. But as long as we have each other, as long as we have those that we love and who we are fighting for and alongside, then this can be a good thing. I think verse 4 is where it really kind of sealed the deal for me, and that's where he says,
Why is life always a mystery? It will be whatever it will be. It all depends on what you think you see. I don't know, but me.
it all depends on what you think you see. And with that last verse, I feel like he kind of takes the idea of that hot right? And he turns it into like hot, ooh, and he takes this thing that should be bad and he turns it on its head and he makes it into a good song. And this is a song that a lot of people kind of like, they gripe about, and they're like, oh, it feels out of place and it doesn't sound like Prince and blah, blah, blah. But that's without understanding the actual importance of this song behind the overall story being told. And so for me, it's like a must-have on this album, just knowing the context here, again, with the sequencing and the imagery and the words being thrown around here. None of it is accidental. It is all very much on purpose.
It's almost dawn. Stand up and be strong.
The next song is Stand Up and Be Strong. So now that everybody is together, we must all gather the courage to fight for equality and our place in America. In the story of Welcome to America, this is Black people commiserating together, sharing those hardships we've all been through, and encouraging each other to face that hot summer that we know is coming. This not only reinforces the convictions of those already assembled, but it also starts to bring in more people. Together, we can all stand up and be strong. Now, the previous three songs, 1,000 Light Years from Here, Hot Summer, and Stand Up and Be Strong, were about getting people on board and motivating them, letting them in on the vision for the future that could be. Now, of course, comes the opposition and the need to acknowledge and get through these obstacles in order to move forward into a better future.
Let's check the record, see what it says. Seem like your girlfriend.
And that starts with Check the Record. This song comes across as innocuous enough. Hey, I was talking to your woman, but not like that, and now you have the wrong idea. As funky and fun as the song is, Check the Record in the story of the album and the message being here, it represents infighting.
Seem like your girlfriend was in my head. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Fear, jealousy, these kinds of things are concepts that can turn allies against each other. And insecurity in one's relationship is certain to do the trick. There's a lot of false machismo in the Black community as well, which is something ingrained in us from the old days and even today. I love that Prince is singing about it though, and that I've actually seen huge strides in this department from my people here. Check the Record is all about the misconceptions and the infighting and people trying to go at each other's throats. But of course, Prince has a solution for that. To further expound upon the point of the infighting, we get Same Page, Different Book.
What are we fighting for?
In this song, Prince tries to take the conversation to the spiritual side. We all want peace, but if he's reading Jehovah's Witness Bible and you're reading the Catholic Bible, then you might have different ideas of how to get there. But in the end, it doesn't matter. You both want peace. So you have to put that aside, is what Prince is saying, which is a far cry from the proselytizing that he had done years prior, of there really only being one truth and everything like that. He does say in this song there's only one God, but also whatever name he took.
There's only one God, whatever name he took.
He also makes references to that in the song Act of God off of 2010.
Honey, how nobody holy books are the same. Everybody's got a different name.
Again, one of the other songs that made me think that he was kind of on this weird, not really following a real religion anymore and just having that personal connection with God. But more than just saying that conflict exists, at the end of the song, Prince really drops a bomb to reveal the truth.
Watch out for the sinister minister. They out there, y'all. Same page, different book. Better off chilling till the world ends.
He says, watch out for the sinister minister. They're out there, y'all. Because if you follow their lead, then, quote, you better off chilling till the world ends. So it's not just the people who are in the wrong here, but their spiritual leaders who are also pointing them like a gun at their supposed enemies. basically making us fight each other. This is, of course, a second blow to the leadership that people have in America, since Prince already kind of addressed the political inaction in track 1, and ineptitude, I guess. But in short, Prince is saying, I know that we had some infighting, and check the record. We need to get over that, and we need to get over our ideological conflicts as well, or we're all doomed. Then we get to When She Comes, because when Prince talks about war, you know that love can't be too far behind. This song goes back to kind of classic Prince ideas of whatever happens when everyone is together. Well, obviously, that means lots of sex. Everybody can be sexually free if we're all free of the other chains that might bind us. And that physical closeness becomes reality and everyone loves each other. And it kind of becomes kind of a perfect world. So in terms of the story of the album, this is where people have now kind of gotten over their internal issues and they've come together. Otherwise, you know, it's a pretty sexy song lyrically, but its placement in sequencing on the album tells us the secondary reason why it's pretty awesome and how it contributes to the flow of the overall experience here on Welcome to America. Now, again, remember, this is all about obstacles. So 1010, Rin 1010. I like to say both, I don't know why. Remember what Prince sang about in Welcome to America. The first song on the album kind of laid it all out. We're all trapped by society, the endless maze that is American life. Even if we come together, we still have to fight against the mechanisms that would tell us to do otherwise. So that's where Rin 1010 comes in. The chorus speaks of earthquakes, floods, and the importance to address these worldwide catastrophes. Run for your life. You need to survive. But then it says, but you can ask the Lone Ranger and Rin 1010. And that shows that people are kind of being sucked into entertainment instead of addressing the fundamental trials of our time. Another line in there says that we're analog people in a digital world, which is kind of like saying that the media is being used to turn people into sheep and guide them into complacency because they're using the tools of the future against these people who haven't really caught up. And by people who haven't really caught up, it's because, systemic power is not necessarily one that Black people have in their hands. So then Prince seals the deal with the line,
Best to be like water. So a sucker just looking for spark. Water. Best to be still like water. On your master's clock. Water. It's best to be like water. There's no vibration in rock.
Whether you're a boss or a sucker, just looking for stock, you're still a second hand on your master's clock. So I feel like that's calling out the so-called successful Black people who made it out of the system, who made it out alive, but really they're just as affected as the rest of us. They didn't beat the system. They are just now part of the system. And just in a different piece of it than the rest of us. And we're all being controlled by the masters that need to be taken down in order for us to have a new world. The backing vocals during that part are also repeating best to be like water, reminding us that we need to be able to kind of push off any of this negativity that we're now experiencing. We've come together, we've fought, but we've made up with When She Comes. And now we're gonna keep getting berated, but we need to be able to ignore that. Also, if we take the other kind of use of water, is that it is strong enough to break through rock if there's enough force behind it, which of course then brings in the line, there's no vibration in rock. So without us, there's no vibration in rock, but we're like water, so we can cut through it all if we really want to. But in the story of this album, Welcome to America, 1010 kind of calls out pop culture and media for turning people into sheep. The reference to Rin 1010 and the Lone Ranger and not shows popular in 2010 and 2011, I feel like is saying, like, this is an old playbook. This is old news. This has been going on for a very, very long time. Both of these shows ended in the late 50s, pretty much right after Prince was born. So he's saying it's been going on even from before I was born. Like, so that's huge. Time is being used as a weapon against us. What time is it? Time to watch TV. You know, so it's kind of interesting, the power of this song. And, you know, you listen to it and you're like, you got to let the funk unwind, you know, and but really, it's so deep. And thus, all the obstacles have been kind of laid out, some resolved, but we all know that there's going to be more. And moving on to the conclusion of this album, we now know the troubles before us as we choose whether we want to act as a force of change. And the question is, what is your answer? Prince gives us his answer with the next song, Yes. Now we return to the question posed in Welcome to America. Your biggest change, regardless of the outside obstacles, comes from within. So, will you say yes or no? The song affirms Prince's answer, and of course, he's trying to get you to come along for the ride. He wants you to say yes as well. The song itself is pretty simple, just as the choice should be. It's the shortest song on the album because this isn't something you should mull over for too long. Make the choice, make the right choice, and be resolute in your decision. To call attention to two lines in the song in particular, Prince says, one,
If you're ready, we can turn the page. As long as they move us to a bigger cage. Oh yeah.
if you're ready, people, turn the page, as long as they ain't moving us to a bigger cage. I love that line. But what it does is it acknowledges how black people feel trapped, and saying yes will hopefully break them out of that cage, and not just make the cage bigger. The bigger cage is where the walls are just out of reach. They're just farther away, that you don't notice that you're in a cage anymore. That's kind of a way of saying, I'm not about incremental change. We need something to happen. We need fundamental systemic change now. Because some actions are performative and they give the appearance of real change, but nothing substantial, and in the end, you're still in a cage. So you don't want just a bigger cage, you want the cage gone. That's an amazing, amazing line. From so little, he says so much. The second line that I want to call out is, the summer is here and it's time to start a fire, aka hot summer. It's a callback to hot summer. And I think it's a cool way to reinforce that point. It's gonna be a hard road. You still gotta say yes. And then we get the final song on the album. You've said yes, or he's trying to get you to say yes. And now we get to One Day We Will Be Free, because we need a plan into action. Prince doesn't really know exactly what that plan would look like, but he posits that the status quo, it isn't working. So you need to do something, because what has happened already, it ain't gonna cut it. All of the systems are in place to keep us where we are. The church, the schools, the government, the history being taught, everything, the media. Oh, so much. Everything wants us to sit and be quiet. The song drops a lot of inspirational nuggets and asks some tough questions that could change the world if they were really answered.
Makes you wonder who controls the nations if we never had peace.
Like, who controls the nations if we never had peace? Or if George Washington never told a lie? Which is an old folk tale about the president, which is absolutely untrue if you know the real history, then maybe we'd all be free. An amazing song lyrically. The perils of the past definitely left its scars on our present, but they don't have to do the same to the future. This is what Welcome to America is trying to say. We see where we've been, and we see where we are, but we need to forge a new path. If this album had been released in 2011, I wonder if it would have fallen on deaf ears. Not only was his music not getting to the masses due to his not having huge distribution deals with record companies. I mean, we knew where to get his music. We did. All his friends. But, he was making music for everybody, but only a small fraction of people were actually listening. But also the world hadn't yet really recognized the atrocity that had been put on black people by the law and the government for so long. They hadn't seen that yet. Black Lives Matter wasn't truly founded until 2013. So if these were the thoughts that Prince was having around this time, then no wonder he jumped at the chance to work with Black Lives Matter when it actually came down to it. He wore his support for black people everywhere. If it had been released, though, I wonder if it could have sparked something even sooner than 2013. Now that it actually has been released, though, in 2021, I wonder if it has the potential to have as big an impact. There seem to be some movements in the right direction, and yet it also seems like that cage is just getting bigger instead of everyone truly being free. I won't go too deep into politics or cite the laundry list of specific examples happening today, like the Voting Bills Act not passing, things like that. But what I will say is that if you're not out there making a difference for the equality among all people, then welcome to America. What did you guys think of my interpretation of this album? Am I spot on? Am I off? What did you guys think that Prince was trying to say? I want to know what y'all think. Down in the comments, let's continue the discussion. This is a huge conversation, but I'm so happy that all of you are here to have it with me. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification. Consider becoming a patron or YouTube member here. There's links all in the description. And otherwise, may you live to see the dawn. I love you all, and I will see you in the next video.